Hi, this is Ken from the Freeplane community. I'd like to share with you something I've learned over the years about connecting words like this red word here to this red word using a link or a connector. You can see that as I drag it around, you can see the connector is staying put with those two words. And if I add a new parent node to this one and just start typing into some text, it pushes the second one around and you can still see the link is in the right place. So I'm going to back out of that. So starting from scratch on this one, I'll go ahead and remove the connector, zoom in just a bit. Now you may find that if you widen this gap, sometimes it can help. So I'm going to, this one's already selected, I'm going to select that one, and I'm right clicking now. Down here is connect. On this system it's Control L. I think that's the default, but yours may be different. I'm just going to click there and I get a connector out here. Now there's different types of connectors. Line, that's the one I like to use when I'm connecting words together. Curve, that's this one. Linear path, that's more of a line with corners. And then simulated edge, which is supposed to simulate these edges here, this edge. Now if I click on this line and hold down my left mouse button, there's nothing I can do. That just pans the map, just like if I clicked out here and did the same thing. And that's what happens down here too. It's just panning. You can't modify the line, the connector. But on curve and linear path you can. I'm going to put down my left mouse button and just drag. Left mouse button, drag. So you can see those can be changed. And you have to use one of these to get to the point where you can convert it to a line. So as I say, I changed my default. I think this defaults to a curve, but I found I can control things a lot better with the linear path. So the first thing I'm going to do is to grab here in the corner and kind of pull down and into the center for that one. This corner, pull up and into the center. Now it's just a matter of trying to find what looks like it's an actual point where you'd want to link to. Sometimes this is easier if you zoom in a bit. Whoops. Yeah, sometimes if you're dragging within where this connector shape is in its territory, you can't really drag the map. So now we're going to go back here with this one and try to position it. And sometimes if you position one, you have to go back and take another look at the other. Now, so far I've been looking at these points of anchor down here and up here. One thing else you have to consider is this gap here between the two nodes. If this line stays within the gap, then you have a pretty good chance of it, of the anchor point sticking. If it should get outside here, then that changes the whole pivot point for those two nodes. So now I'm going to right click on the line and I'm going to change it to line. So here again we've got a connection with those two words. One thing you might be interested in is if, even though you cannot change the anchor points or the shape of the line in here, you can right click, you can change the line color, you can change the arrows, and again you can change the type of shape if you want to. You can change these connector lines to something else. You can change the font, you can change the width, you can put a label here. I'm putting one in the middle. I'll just say label. So you can do a lot of things, but you just can't change the anchor points with a line. Now sometimes after maybe days or weeks you might decide, I really want this one above this one. So I'm going to drag it. And they look like these two red words look like they're linked. But if I drag this around a little bit, you can see now that this looks like the line is going from this word up to this word. That's because, and I'll show you, I'm going to go here and select both of those. I'm going to go into my properties, and the whole color for the whole core, I'm going to go to the background and give this, make it transparent. So now you can see that the anchor point is no longer here on this node, it's down here. The anchor point is no longer here like it used to be, it's up here. So as I move this around, you can see it's working properly. It's just pivoting from up here or down here. So I'm going to move that. You can watch on the upper cell where that's pivoting. So it's working correctly. It's just that it doesn't look like they're linked anymore because the pivot point's changed. Now just to verify that visually a little bit better, I'm going to change this back to a linear path. So now you can see that these connector ends are not within this gap. They're outside the gap. So in order to fix this, if you want to keep this node above this node, then again you just drag, and I like the corners. So you drag that back inside. You drag that back inside. Then you tweak where you think it looks good. And this is a little bit of a crapshoot because once you you change one, again the other one is possibly going to change it. I'm just going to leave it like that. Right click, go back to line, and you can see that they are connected like they started out. Now I recommend it always working inside of this gap, but you can work outside the gap with a little bit of a caveat. I'm going to remove here, and I'm going to suck out that space between them. So the trick is, and I'm going to move this back to where it was, the trick is before and after you do your line on the outside, you have to swap the cells or the nodes. So I'm going to start by doing that. Now I'm going to go back through this. I'm going to right click and drag down here to create the connectors. This time I'm going to move that to the top or the outside and do the same thing with the bottom. Control Z to back out of that. Zoom in again, and you can temporarily just move this out of the way so you can see what you're doing. Okay, drag that to the outside, and I'm going to double click there to bring that back where it was. So now you go through the same process. You try to link these together. Here you have to be a little bit more careful because when you swap those back, it may be in just a little bit of the wrong position. So now I'm going to create the line again, or change the shape back to line. You can see it's still got that bad outside pivot point, but here's where we go back and swap these back to that position. Now see, you can tell because I did it on the outside, these are not quite in the right place. But if we turn this back to a linear path, we can do a little bit more tweaking. Put that back to where I think it might work. Back to line, and now they're back to being linked. So I've used this quite a bit, and I find it helpful. I hope you do too. I hope you've learned something, and thanks for watching.